Let's turn our attention to the banks now. Nedbank opting to hold its final dividend, but remains upbeat about prospects this year. Its full-year results showing headline earnings for the year to December falling 57% to 5.4 billion rand, as clients lost some of their ability to pay back loans on the back of COVID-19, the group's impairment charge rising 114%. I want to bring in Nedbank Chief Operations Officer Mfundo Nkulu. Mfundo, thanks very much for talking to us. You've held on to your dividend payout while some of your peers in the industry paid them out. What's the reason for this?
Thank you, Devon, for that. So, certainly, you will see that we reported that our CET1 capital ratio at 10.9%, pretty much in the middle of the target range of 10 to 12%. And in that context, we then had to take into account the spirit of the guidance notes that were issued by the regulator. We had to take into account our aspirations for growth and the need for capital to be able to support growth as the economy recovers. And then all of that had to be balanced out against the uncertainty with respect to potential future waves, as well as the speed and efficacy of the rollout of the vaccination program. Take all of that into account. We thought it would be prudent not to declare a final dividend at this point, but we're forecasting and expecting that we will return to a dividend-paying position at interim results of 2021.
So I want to talk about that because you're identifying risks in the short term. You've got the efficacy of the vaccine rollout and related risks around that, but yet you're upbeat about this country's economic prospects and consumer health. What are you pointing at? 3.4% possibly this year. Why is that?
It's a base issue. Certainly, you would expect that after the sharp decline of 7% in 2020, you have a softer base to start with. Clearly, there would have to be a number of other things that we get right. The economic recovery program has certainly been slow to take off the ground. You've got to address business sentiment as an unlock of investment activity. Big focus that the state is placing on infrastructure investment is to stimulate economic activity on the back of that. For us, we think that all of those measures supported by structural reform should feed into growth over the medium term. Clearly, there's a base issue in the short run which can give a spurt to growth, but for that to be sustained, all of these other measures would have to kick in.
What are the results saying about the Nedbank client's ability to start paying back loans? I mean, the bad debt is an issue not just for your bank, but you can see that being a big stain on results, can't you?
Yes, it is in the nature of the cycle that we're in. We needed to make sure that we well provided, and so you can see that in the impairment coverage ratio that has now moved to 3.25%. It reflects the point we're in the cycle. Mm-hmm. But if you do a decomposition of economic activity, first of all, we're able to support our clients through cash flow relief to the tune of 121 billion rand, as we restructured loans and we provided payment holidays in support of the economy broadly. We've seen in the second half of the year that declining to now a residual of 28 billion rand, mm-hmm. of which 2 billion rand is with respect to retail clients. Mm-hmm. So what that tells us is that clients have used the second half of the year, some recovering the economy there, to repay their obligations and to whittle down their debt position. Mm-hmm. Businesses also used the early part of the year, particularly quarter two, to draw down on their facilities in order to protect short-term cash flow requirements.
I want to come in there, and my
the
apologies for coming in. We're just running out of time, but just one question before I let you go, Mfundu. We see more and more now that the regulation is getting tighter on banks here, and I speak to the fact that banks like yours have to make provision for the Conduct of Financial Institution Bill. Now, essentially, that would make transformation an explicit function of the financial sector conduct regulator. We saw the Deputy Finance Minister speak about that in Parliament yesterday. More rules for banks. What's your take on that effect short-term on the bank?
Certainly, we would expect that regulation do come with a cost side to it, and so we would expect that. But at the same time, we do have a well-regulated, functioning banking sector, and the quality of that regulation is what has stood the banking sector very well under stress conditions. We do think that ultimately it's got to be a source of confidence for our clients that you have well-regulated, well-managed banking industry. And on the back of that, you can give sustainable performance over time.
All right, thanks very much indeed. Chief Operations Officer at Nedbank there, Mfundu Nkulu. Thanks indeed for your time. All right.